I analyzed 1,000 people trying to make money online, and almost all of them failed. Not because they were lazy, not because they were stupid, but because they were following strategies that quietly guarantee failure. The shocking part? The ones who succeeded did the exact opposite of what everyone else was doing. Stick with me, because what you're about to hear will completely change how you see making money online. And if you want even deeper insights, real strategies, and honestly some absurd money truths nobody talks about, join our Telegram channel, link in the description. I didn't expect the results to look like this. When I started digging into the data, I thought I'd find something simple. Maybe people weren't consistent enough. Maybe they didn't work hard enough. Maybe they just gave up too early. But that's not what showed up. Out of 1,000 people trying to make money online, freelancers, dropshippers, crypto traders, affiliate marketers, content creators, only 47 were making any meaningful income after 1 year. Not rich, not financially free, just consistent money. That's 4.7%. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most of the other 953 people weren't doing nothing. They were busy, extremely busy, watching tutorials, buying courses, switching strategies, testing new ideas every few weeks. They felt productive, but they weren't making money. Let me show you what that actually looks like in real life. There's a guy, let's call him Alex. Alex starts with dropshipping. He spends 2 weeks watching YouTube videos, buys a $300 course, builds a store, runs ads, loses $500. Now he's frustrated, so he pivots. He hears about freelancing, opens a Fiverr account, sends 40 proposals, gets no replies, decides the market is too saturated, moves on again. Now it's crypto. He joins a Discord group, starts trading, wins a little, loses more, ends up down $1,200. At this point, he's been working for 4 months. If you ask him, he'll tell you he's trying everything, grinding, learning, doing what it takes. But financially, he's moving backwards. Now here's the interesting part. There's another person. Let's call her Maya. Maya picks one thing, just one, freelance video editing. She's not amazing at it, not even close. Her first projects are rough, clients complain, she undercharges, she feels like she's behind everyone else. But she doesn't switch. Month 1, $0. Month 2, $120. Month 3, $380. Month 6, $1,200. By the end of the year, she's making $3,000 a month. Not viral success, not glamorous, but real, consistent, and most importantly, scalable. Now pause for a second, because the difference between Alex and Maya isn't intelligence. It's not talent. It's not even effort. It's behavior. And that's what shocked me the most when I analyzed all 1,000 people. The people who fail online don't fail because they do too little. They fail because they do too much of the wrong things. Let me explain. There's a pattern I kept seeing over and over again. I call it the opportunity addiction. Every week, there's a new way to make money online. Dropshipping, SMMA, crypto, AI tools, Amazon FBA, digital products, YouTube automation. Each one comes with the same promise. This is easier. This is faster. This is the thing that actually works. So people jump. And every time they jump, they reset. New skill, new system, new learning curve, new mistakes. Imagine trying to build a house. But every week, you switch locations and start over from the foundation. That's what most people are doing. And they don't even realize it. Because it feels like progress. But it's not. It's motion without momentum. And the data makes this painfully clear. Out of the 953 people who didn't succeed, 78% switched their main method at least 3 times in 1 year, 61% never stuck with one strategy longer than 60 days, 42% bought more than 3 courses but implemented less than half of what they learned. Think about that. They weren't lacking information. They were drowning in it. Now here's where it gets even more interesting. When I looked at the 47 people who actually made money, I expected them to be smarter, more experienced, maybe even luckier. But they weren't. In fact, most of them started with no advantage, no audience, no connections, no special skills. What they did have was constraint. They didn't try everything. They picked one path and removed the option to quit it early, almost like they locked themselves in. One guy literally wrote a rule for himself. I'm not allowed to change strategy for 6 months. 6 months. No matter what. Even if it's not working. Even if it feels slow. Even if something better shows up. That single rule eliminated 90% of the mistakes most people make. Because here's the truth nobody tells you about making money online. The first 90 days almost always feel like failure. You're slow, you're confused, you're underpaid, you're invisible, and your brain starts looking for escape. Something easier, something faster, something that makes you feel like you're not wasting time. That's the trap. Because the moment you leave, you go back to zero. Again and again and again. Now let's talk about money, because this is where things get real. The average person in the study spent about $1,800 trying to make money online in their first year. Courses, tools, ads, software, subscriptions. $1,800. And the average return? $320. That's not an investment. That's a loss. But the 47 people who succeeded? They spent about the same amount. The difference is how they spent it. Instead of buying multiple courses across different models, they went deep on one. Instead of jumping tools, they mastered one system. Instead of chasing income, they built skill. And that changes everything, because skills compound, strategies don't. Let me say that again. Skills compound, strategies don't. If you learn video editing, copywriting, sales, content creation, those skills follow you. They improve, they stack, they open new doors. But if you chase strategies, dropshipping 1 month, crypto the next, AI tools after that, you're constantly starting from zero. And zero doesn't compound. That's why most people feel stuck. Not because they're not working, but because nothing they're doing carries forward. Now there's one more thing I noticed that honestly surprised me, and it's about time. Everyone thinks making money online is about speed. How fast can I make my first $1,000? How quickly can I quit my job? How soon will this work? But the people who actually succeeded weren't thinking like that at all. They were thinking in terms of durability. Can I still do this in 6 months? Will this skill still matter in 2 years? Can this grow without me restarting everything? That shift changes your decisions completely. Because when you think short-term, you chase hacks. When you think long-term, you build assets. And money online is not about hacks. It's about assets, skills, systems, reputation, audience, experience. Those are the things that quietly make people rich, not the strategy itself. And this is where most people get it completely backwards. They think the method is everything, but the method is just the vehicle. The real game is what you become while doing it. Because if you become valuable, money becomes inevitable. And if you don't, no strategy will save you. Not dropshipping, not crypto, not AI, not anything. And that's exactly what the data showed, over and over again. The people chasing money or didn't make it. The people building value couldn't avoid it. Think about that. I'll wait. And this is where things start to get uncomfortable. Because once you see this pattern, you can't unsee it. Most people aren't actually trying to build income. They're trying to feel like they're building income. There's a difference, a big one. Because feeling productive is easy. You can watch a 20-minute video about top 5 side hustles for 2026 and feel like you just moved forward. You can redesign your website for the 3rd time and convince yourself you're improving your business. You can spend hours researching the best niche and walk away with nothing, but still feel busy. But none of that pays you. Let me give you a real example. There was a guy in the data set. I'll call him Ryan. Ryan spent 6 months preparing to launch a dropshipping store. 6 months. He researched products, analyzed competitors, studied Facebook ads, watched tutorials, tweaked his website design over and over again. If you asked him what he was doing, he'd say, "I'm building something serious." But here's the problem. He never launched, not once, because every time he got close, he found something else to optimize. The logo wasn't perfect. The product page could be better. The ad strategy needed more testing. So he waited, and waited, and waited. Meanwhile, someone else in the same data set, no experience, no perfect setup, launched their store in 10 days. Was it ugly? Yes. Was it optimized? Not even close. Did it make money? Also no. At first. But it gave them something Ryan never got. Feedback. Real feedback. That's the thing most people completely misunderstand about making money online. You don't learn by preparing. You learn by getting punched in the face by reality. Your first offer will flop. Your first content will get ignored. Your first client will be hard to deal with. That's not failure. That's data. And the faster you collect that data, the faster you improve. But if you stay in preparation mode, you never collect anything. You just stay comfortable. And comfort is expensive. Now here's something that really stood out in the analysis. The people who failed weren't just switching strategies. They were avoiding discomfort. Every time something got hard, they interpreted it as a sign they chose the wrong path. So they switched. But the people who succeeded? They expected it to feel hard. In fact, they used discomfort as confirmation they were on the right track. Think about that for a second. Same situation. One person says, "This is hard, I should stop." The other says, "This is hard, so I should keep going." That single interpretation changes everything, because most online income models have what I call a delayed reward curve. At the beginning, effort feels disconnected from results. You put in hours, and nothing happens. No money, no traction, no validation. So your brain starts panicking. Maybe this doesn't work. Maybe I'm wasting time. Maybe I should try something else. And honestly, that voice sounds very logical. But it's wrong, because almost every real skill works like this. There's a lag. Let's say you start learning copywriting. For the first few weeks, you're just confused. You're reading examples, trying to understand what works, writing things that feel awkward and forced. Then, maybe you land a small gig. $50, maybe $100. It doesn't feel like progress, but something is happening under the surface. You're building pattern recognition. You start seeing what hooks work, what headlines grab attention, what offers convert. And then one day, something clicks. Your writing improves, your confidence goes up, your rates increase, and suddenly you're making $1,000 from a skill that paid you nothing a few months ago. That's the curve. But most people quit before the curve turns, because they expect linear progress. Effort in, results out. That's how jobs work. But online income doesn't work like that. It's non-linear, and that messes with people's heads. Now let's talk about another pattern that showed up in almost every failed case: consumption versus creation. The average person in the dataset spent about 70% of their time consuming content, and only 30% actually creating or executing. Watching tutorials, reading threads, scrolling ideas, saving posts. It feels like learning, but it's passive, and passive learning has a ceiling. At some point, you're just repeating the same information in different formats. Meanwhile, the people who succeeded flipped that ratio. 70% creation, 30% learning. They learned just enough to act, then they acted. Messy action, imperfect execution, real output. Let me give you a simple example. Two people want to start making money with content. Person A watches 50 videos about YouTube strategy, learns about thumbnails, retention, storytelling, algorithms, feels prepared, but doesn't post anything for weeks. Person B watches 5 videos, gets the basics, starts posting immediately. The first videos are bad, low views, weak engagement, awkward delivery, but they keep going. By video 20, they're better. By video 50, they're unrecognizable. Guess who makes money first? It's not even close, because skill comes from repetition, not information. And most people are addicted to information. It feels safer. Now here's another uncomfortable truth. Most people overestimate how much they need to know and underestimate how much they need to do. They think, I need one more course. I need to understand this better. I need to be more ready. But readiness is a myth. You don't become ready. You become less unready through action. That's it. And the faster you accept that, the faster things start moving. Now, I want to show you something that really surprised me. When I looked at income timelines, the people who eventually succeeded didn't necessarily start faster. They just didn't stop. That's it. No crazy advantage, no secret strategy. They just stayed in the game longer than everyone else. And that sounds simple, but it's not. Because staying in the game requires something most people don't build: emotional stability. Let me explain. Making money online is psychologically volatile. One week you feel like a genius. The next week you feel like quitting everything. One day you make $200. The next 5 days you make nothing. It's inconsistent, unpredictable, And if your emotions are tied to short-term results, you'll burn out. That's exactly what happened to most people in the dataset. They rode emotional highs and lows. When things worked, they doubled down emotionally. When things didn't, they collapsed, and eventually, they quit. But the people who made it? They were boring. Seriously, they didn't get too excited when things worked. They didn't panic when things didn't. They just kept going. Same process, same effort, same focus, day after day. And that consistency compounds, not just financially, but mentally. Because after a while, you stop reacting, you stop chasing, you stop doubting every move, and you start trusting the process. Now let's bring this back to money, because at the end of the day, that's the goal. The first $1 online is the hardest, not because it's technically difficult, but because it proves something. It proves that this is real, that someone, somewhere, is willing to pay you. And once that happens, everything changes. Your confidence shifts, your decisions change, your standards go up. And that's why the gap between $0 and $1 is bigger than the gap between $1,000 and $10,000. Because the first dollar removes doubt. But most people never get there, not because they can't, but because they never stay in one place long enough to break through. They keep resetting the game, and resetting kills momentum. Now here's the part nobody wants to hear. Making money online is not about finding the best opportunity. It's about becoming the kind of person who can extract value from any opportunity. Because once you build that ability, it doesn't matter if it's freelancing, content, e-commerce, or something else. You'll figure it out. But if you don't build that ability, no opportunity will save you. And that's exactly what the data showed. Over and over again. Different strategies, same outcomes. Because the variable wasn't the method, it was the person. Think about that. And this is the point where most people start asking the wrong question. They look at the people who are making money online and ask, what are they doing? But that's not the question that matters. The real question is, how are they thinking while they're doing it? Because two people can follow the exact same strategy and end up in completely different places. Let me show you what I mean. There were two people in the dataset who both started content creation around the same time. Same niche, same platform, same goal. Make money with videos. On the surface, they were doing the same thing, posting consistently, trying to improve, learning along the way, but internally, completely different game. The first one, let's call him Jason, was obsessed with results. Every video he posted, he checked the views. After 1 hour, after 3 hours, after 12. If a video didn't perform, it ruined his day. If a video did well, he felt amazing. For about 5 minutes. Then the pressure came back. How do I repeat this? What if the next one flops? Was that just luck? So every piece of content became stressful, heavy, high stakes. Now the second person, we'll call her Elena, approached it differently. She didn't ignore results, but she didn't worship them either. Instead, she focused on output quality. Was this better than my last video? Did I improve something small? Did I learn anything from this? Her scoreboard wasn't views, it was progress. And that changes everything. Because when your identity is tied to results, you become fragile. Every bad outcome feels personal. Every slow period feels like failure. But when your identity is tied to improvement, you become stable. You can handle bad results because you're still moving forward. And guess what happened after 6 months? Jason burned out. He slowed down posting, started overthinking everything, eventually stopped. Elena? She got better, gradually, quietly, consistently, and by month 8, her content started taking off. Not because she chased the algorithm, but because she became better at delivering value. That pattern showed up everywhere. People who focused on outcomes quit faster. People who focused on process lasted longer, and lasting longer is the entire game. Now let's talk about something even deeper, because this is where money actually starts to appear. The people who succeeded didn't just stick longer, they shifted what they were optimizing for. Most beginners optimize for money. How do I make $1,000 fast? What's the quickest way to profit? What's the easiest model? But the successful ones optimized for leverage. And this is where things get interesting. Leverage is what allows you to make money without directly trading time for it. There are a few types. Skill leverage, like copywriting or sales media leverage, like content or audience system leverage, like automation or processes. Now here's what I noticed. The majority of the 953 people were stuck in low-leverage activities, things that required constant input for small output, cold outreach with no system, random gigs with no retention, short-term plays with no scalability. So even when they made money, it didn't grow. They were stuck in a loop. Work to get paid to stop working to income stops. That's not a business. That's a treadmill. But the 47 who succeeded? They gradually moved toward leverage. Not immediately, but intentionally. For example, one guy started with freelance design. At first, he was charging $20 per project. Low leverage, time for money. But instead of staying there, he improved his skill, raised his rates, started getting repeat clients, then referrals, then packaged his service, then hired help. Same starting point, completely different trajectory, because he didn't just chase income, he built something that could grow. And that's the difference most people miss. They're trying to make money, instead of trying to build something that makes money. Those are not the same thing. Now let's talk about expectations, because this is where a lot of people quietly sabotage themselves. Most people expect their effort to pay off quickly, not instantly, but soon, within a few weeks, maybe a couple of months. And when it doesn't, they start questioning everything. But here's what the data showed. The average time to first meaningful income, around $1,000 per month, was 7 to 11 months. Let that sink in, almost a year. And that's for the people who actually made it. Now imagine this. You start something. You work on it for 3 months. You see little to no results. What do most people do? They quit, or switch, or slow down. But according to the data, they were halfway there. Halfway. That's the painful part. They weren't failing. They were just early, and they misinterpreted it. This is what I call the invisible gap, the space between effort and visible results, where nothing seems to be happening, but everything is. Skills are improving, understanding is deepening, mistakes are decreasing. But externally, it looks like zero, and humans hate that. We want signals, we want proof, we want validation. So when we don't get it, we assume something is wrong. But in most cases, nothing is wrong. You're just in the gap. Now here's where things get really interesting. Because I started looking at what happens right before people quit. And there was a pattern. Almost everyone quit right after a small win. Not a failure, a win. Let me explain. They'd finally get a client, make their first $100, have a post perform well. And instead of building on it, they'd change direction. Because now they felt like they figured it out. So they tried to scale too early, or switch to something bigger, or overcomplicated things, and they lost momentum. It's like hitting your first step on a staircase, and then jumping off to look for an elevator. Doesn't make sense, but people do it all the time. Because success, even small success, creates overconfidence, and overconfidence leads to bad decisions. The people who succeeded did something different. They respected small wins. They treated them like signals, not endpoints. If something worked, even a little, they leaned into it, refined it, repeated it, scaled it slowly. And that's how momentum builds. Now let's talk about one more thing, because this might be the most important shift of all. The successful people didn't see money as the goal. They saw it as feedback. That's it. Money is just a signal that you created value. Nothing more, nothing less. But most people attach emotion to it. If they make money, they feel successful. If they don't, they feel like failures. And that emotional roller coaster makes everything harder. Because now you're not just building something. You're constantly evaluating your self-worth. That's exhausting. But if you detach, if you see money as feedback, everything becomes clearer. No sales? Okay, something isn't working. Fix it. Low response rate? Message needs improvement. Adjust it. Client unhappy? Delivery issue. Improve it. It becomes a game, a system, not a personal judgment. And that mindset allows you to keep going longer than everyone else. Which, again, is the entire advantage. Because the longer you stay in the game, the more inevitable your success becomes. Not guaranteed, but increasingly likely. And that's what the data really showed. Not magic, not luck, not secret strategies. Just people who stayed long enough, improved enough, and built something real. while everyone else kept restarting. Think about that. And at some point, something very subtle happens. Not dramatic, not overnight, not even obvious, but everything starts to feel easier. Not because the work got easier, but because you changed. This is the part nobody talks about. There's a moment, usually somewhere between month 6 and month 12, where you stop feeling like a beginner. You still have problems, you still make mistakes, you still have bad days, but you're not lost anymore. You know what to do next. And that's powerful, because confusion is what makes most people quit. Not difficulty, confusion. When you don't know if what you're doing is right, every step feels risky, every decision feels heavy, every mistake feels like wasted time. But once you've been in the game long enough, you start recognizing patterns. You've seen problems before, you've solved things before, you've survived slow periods before. So instead of panicking, you adjust, calmly, rationally. And that's when things start compounding. Let me give you a real example. There was a guy in the data set. We'll call him Daniel. Daniel spent his first 4 months trying to land freelance clients. Cold outreach, no replies, or worse, rejection. At one point, he sent over 120 messages and got nothing. Most people would quit right there. Honestly, that's where most people did quit. But Daniel didn't. Not because he was more motivated, but because he changed how he interpreted the situation. Instead of thinking, "This doesn't work," he asked a different question. "What am I doing wrong?" So he reviewed his messages, compared them to others, improved his offer, made it clearer, simpler, more specific. Then he sent another 100. Still not great results, but slightly better. A few replies, one call, no deal. And this is where most people would lose patience. But Daniel didn't expect it to work immediately anymore. He expected iteration, and that expectation changed everything, because now every attempt had a purpose. Not just to succeed, but to improve. By month 5, he landed his first client, $150. Nothing crazy, but real. By month 8, he was making $2,000 a month. Same strategy, completely different execution. Now here's the important part. If you look at his timeline from the outside, it looks like sudden success, like things finally worked. But that's not what happened. He was building the entire time. It just wasn't visible yet. That's the illusion. People see the result, but not the buildup. They see the outcome, but not the iterations. And because of that, they underestimate how long it actually takes. Now let's zoom out, because when you look at all 1,000 people, something becomes very clear. Success online is not random, it's patterned. The same mistakes show up again and again. The same behaviors lead to the same outcomes, and the same principles quietly separate the 47 from the 953. Let me simplify it for you. The people who failed, they chased opportunities. They avoided discomfort. They consumed more than they created. They expected fast results. They switched too early. The people who succeeded, they committed to one path. They leaned into discomfort. They executed more than they learned. They thought long-term. They stayed consistent. That's it. No secret, no hidden algorithm, just behavior. And here's the part that might change how you see everything. The gap between those two groups is not skill, it's discipline. But not the kind you think. Not wake up at 5 a.m. discipline. Not work 12 hours a day discipline. It's decision discipline. The ability to not switch. The ability to keep going when it's boring. The ability to stay when nothing is happening. That's rare, because it's uncomfortable. And most people are constantly looking for relief. Something easier, something faster, something that feels better right now. But comfort is what keeps people stuck, because growth doesn't feel good at the beginning. It feels slow, awkward, frustrating. And if you keep escaping that feeling, you never grow. Now let's talk about money again, because this is where everything connects. People think money online comes from strategy, but it doesn't. It comes from value, and value comes from skill, and skill comes from repetition, which means money comes from staying long enough to get good. That's the chain. Break any part of it, and the whole thing collapses. That's why most people never get there. They don't stay long enough, not because they can't, but because they won't. Now I want you to imagine something. Imagine you pick one path, just one: freelancing, content, E-commerce. Doesn't matter. And you commit to it for 12 months. No switching, no chasing new opportunities, no restarting, just improving. Every week, every month, what happens? At first, nothing. Then small wins, then consistency, then growth. And by the end of the year, you're not the same person anymore. Not just financially, mentally. You think differently. You act differently. You see opportunities differently. And that's when money becomes easier. Not easy, but easier. Because now you're not guessing, you're operating. And that's the real shift. From guessing to operating. From reacting to adjusting. From chasing to building. Now here's the final thing I want to leave you with, because this might be the most important insight from the entire analysis. The internet is not competitive in the way people think. It's not crowded with highly skilled, disciplined people executing consistently. It's crowded with distracted people, starting and stopping, which means if you can do the opposite, you stand out automatically, not because you're special, but because you're rare. Think about that. You don't need to be the best. You just need to not quit. You don't need a perfect strategy. You need a consistent one. You don't need more information. You need more execution. And once you understand that, everything becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. And clarity is what allows you to move forward without constantly second-guessing yourself. Because at the end of the day, making money online is not about finding the right thing. It's about becoming the kind of person who makes things work. And once you become that person, you don't just make money once, you can do it again, and again, and again. That's the real goal, not income, capability. Because income can disappear, markets change, platforms evolve, trends die. But capability, that stays. And that's what the 47 people built. Not just money, but the ability to create it, whenever they need to, in any environment. And that's the part most people never see. They're not just earning, they're dangerous, in the best way possible. Because once you understand how value works, once you've gone through the struggle, once you've stayed long enough to break through, you realize something. Money online was never the hard part. Becoming the person who can make it, that's the real game. And now you know exactly how it's played.